Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee and I use this channel to document different ways that I am making and have made my life more intentional. My hope is that if you follow along for the journey, you might find some ways to build a more intentional life as well. Today we're going to be looking over our October budget and setting up our budget for November. I cannot believe we are in the last 2 months of the year. This second half of the year really, I feel like, has flown by. But I am excited because it is one of my favorite times of year. The weather is a lot more cool and dreary, and very soon, if not later today or tomorrow, I will be setting up for Christmas because it is my favorite holiday, and the longer that I can have beautiful twinkly lights in my house, the happier of a person I am. But that's later. Right now, we're looking at our budget. October was a crazy month of spending, both in planned and unplanned ways. But before we look at the numbers, let's talk about how we were feeling in October in general. October was quite a busy month for me, work-wise and also socially, both with things with other people and then also things just with myself and my husband or with my family. I was feeling pretty good in October. I'm pulling up the calendar to try and remember some of the things that we did. We had my sister here a lot. Me and my sister went to a Jonas Brothers concert, which was fantastic, and I have a vlog coming next week with a little bit of footage from that and me talking about it a bit. That was amazing. That was the highlight of the month for sure. And then, like I said, lots of busyness with work. I had the autumn seasonal reset with my friend Evie. That was fantastic. Another highlight of the month. We took our dog to a pumpkin patch. We did some fall baking. It was a good month. It was a very busy month, but a good month. We did go over budget in a couple of different categories, which I'll talk about more. And I'm trying to determine kind of why that was in one of the categories specifically, because I also was very proactive in the kitchen and got a lot of things prepped. But I'm recognizing now that it wasn't necessarily meal prep. It was just things that were time consuming to do in the kitchen. I made sunflower seed milk for the first time. I made limoncello for the first time. I made a lot of vegetable stock this month, prepped a lot of things for the freezer for future recipes, but I didn't do a lot of actual meal prepping. And I think that was potentially my downfall when it came to our eating out budget. But overall, feel really good about this month. We also got our new couch, which was a giant purchase, but the quality of life that has been added back into our lives since that purchase is incomparable to any other thing that we have done in our home in a really long time. Let's quickly look at the percentages for October. If this is your first video that you're jumping into when it comes to budgeting with me, I like to look at the numbers of our budgets in various different ways. Two of the ways that I document in this video are by percentages and the actual budget versus spending in every category that we have within our budget. All right, let's look at our percentages. I am just going to start at the top of the circle and move my way around. No particular order to this. Savings, we had 14.4%. Groceries, 6.3%, eating out, 8.1%, insurance, 4.8%, rent and utilities, 23.2%, subscriptions, 0.2%, gas, 2.3%, business, 1.8%, and miscellaneous, which is a giant piece of the pie, 38.9%, which is super abnormal, and we will talk about why that is when we get to that category. But I like to see this breakdown because one, this is, besides the miscellaneous piece of the pie, this is a pretty interesting thing to see going into the next couple of months and the new year, now that we are completely debt-free. We have no loan repayment, and so our savings amount is actually savings, which is fantastic. And in future months, our rent and utilities should and will hopefully be the largest piece of the pie between that and savings. This miscellaneous was kind of a one-off because of the couch purchase and another purchase that we might have made this month that we totally didn't budget for. Now I want to look at the actual number that we budgeted versus the number that we ended up spending. This is really helpful because going into a new month, making a budget, was our grocery budget enough? Should we add more? Did we go way under budget? Could it be less? It helps inform future months, and then it also helps me see, did I plan accordingly, or were there things that I missed? And I know for sure in one category, there were things I missed. For groceries, we budgeted $500 and we ended up spending $499.09. So we had 91 cents left over in that category. We budgeted fairly well for that one. Eating out is the category that I missed a couple of things, just as far as times that we would be out of the house during times that didn't allow us to eat before we went somewhere. And we had a couple of last minute hangouts with friends that we didn't want to say no to because it was people that we hadn't seen in a really long time. So we prioritized that, and therefore we went over budget. We budgeted $450. We ended up spending $642.61. So therefore we overspent this category by $192.61. There were some of these that were definitely very unnecessary and we could have come at budget or under budget, but that was one of those times where I just didn't necessarily plan accordingly. For rent and utilities, I budgeted $1,889.43, but we actually spent less than that because if you remember, if you watched my budgeting for October video, I wasn't certain on if our phones were paid off. So I put in a little bit of a buffer just in case we still had one last payment in October, but we did not. So we underspent this budget by $44.30. For subscriptions, we budgeted $16.99. That's how much we spent. We only pay for Spotify. We do have Apple TV and Netflix through T-Mobile, but we don't have to pay additional for them. For gas, I budgeted $200 and we ended up spending $185.16. For travel, we didn't have anything. For insurance, we budgeted $379.64 and we spent exactly $379.64. That's one of those categories that I always know a month ahead how much that's going to cost. For business, I budgeted $150 and ended up spending $149.47. So I underspent that category by $4.53. For miscellaneous and personal, we did buff the budget. We budgeted $2,800 because we knew we would be buying the couch and we had some additional purchases that needed to be made. But we ended up spending $3,095.66, overspending that category by $295.66. A couple of things on this category. One, we overspent it by less than I thought we would. And two, I pushed some purchases that I had technically budgeted for because I knew we were going to go over in this category. In all of our other categories, we just try to spend within the budget. There aren't necessarily items or things within those categories that are on our do not buy list since we're still in a low buy year. The miscellaneous / personal category is where I break down each purchase by red, yellow, and green. Red light purchases are unnecessary purchases that we didn't need and we didn't budget for. Yellow light purchases are things that we needed, but I didn't budget for them, either because I forgot or I didn't realize that we would need to purchase it that month. And green light purchases are things that we budgeted for and planned to purchase in that month. So starting with the green light purchases for the month of October, the first thing was our new couch, and that was $2,268.38. We also budgeted for a handheld grip for our Nintendo Switch 2. One, I prefer handheld play, and having a grip on it makes it a lot more comfortable to hold. And it came with a travel case, which is great because we do often travel with our Nintendo Switch. And that was $73. Jonathan needed to renew his CPR certification, and that was $14.95. We picked up some things from Costco. I'm surprised that I didn't write here what all of those things were, but that was budgeted for. I do remember that much at least. and that was $67.31, and that would have been things that were not grocery items. Then we had $47.35 at Alma Coffee, which was to refill Jonathan's coffee canister. And then we also had to get SodaStream carbonation replacements. Those were $33.22. Then for our yellow light purchases, I'm going to start with the smallest one and move up to the largest. The first one was $9.89 at Goodwill. It was for a picture frame and pants for Jonathan to wear actually to my brother's wedding. So again, not necessarily budgeted for this month, but we knew that he would need to purchase something to wear to my brother's wedding. Luckily, it was only $6 at Goodwill. And then I also got another frame because I have been finally hanging things in our apartment, as you can see behind me. And over our couch specifically, I need to get a couple more frames, and I'm trying to thrift all of them and make sure that they are all solid wood. So I found a really great frame. At the same time, we got Jonathan's pants. Then we had a Nordstrom Rack purchase for $20.11, also considered yellow light because this was the shirt that Jonathan is going to wear to my brother's wedding. So again, we knew we needed to purchase it. We just didn't necessarily budget for it in this month. Finally, we have the largest yellow light purchase, which is $422.94. And that is for a brand new Christmas tree. And the reason that it's a yellow light purchase is I knew that I would want to buy a new Christmas tree this year. I just hoped that maybe I would do it in November and not the same month that we bought a brand new couch. However, we had gone to Home Depot because we were taking Brecker there just to kind of get him some stimulation because he had been at the house a lot of days that week, and Home Depot is a really exciting and fun place for him to go. And we were walking around and they had their Christmas trees out, and I kept walking back over to this one tree. And I just want to preface, Christmas is my favorite, okay? I love decorating for Christmas. It's the only season that I decorate for. And the tree is kind of the focal point and the biggest thing that we have. We are in a small 1-bedroom apartment. We do not go crazy for Christmas, but I do really love a tree, and I really love a well-lit, bright tree. The tree that we had before was fine, and it did us very well for 5 years. It had 400 lights on it and like 1,000 branch tips. The reason I'm telling you that is because the new tree has 2,000 lights and over 5,000 branch tips. I couldn't be more thrilled. I cannot wait to put this thing up. So while it was not budgeted for, I am glad that we purchased it. I'm not mad about it. I just wish that it had been next month and that we didn't have 2 fairly large purchases in the month of October, but here we are. Finally, for our red light purchases, one was 99 cents for Kindle Unlimited. I am not one to support Amazon. However, I was trying to find a book that I needed to read for work, found out it was on Kindle Unlimited, and then I got like a pop-up to have 99 cents for 2 months. And so I took that deal to read that book. But don't you worry, I am squeezing the most that I can out of that $1 for 2 months. I will have read probably over 20 books, so that will be well worth it and makes me feel like I'm kind of sticking it to the man, because I'm sure they do that thinking that people either won't read a lot or won't download a lot. I have downloaded over 24 books at this point, and I should finish them all before the subscription expires, and I will be canceling it immediately. Then we have a Target purchase. Then we had $16.70 at Goodwill for some shirts for Jonathan. I know that I said I wasn't going to let him buy any more. We found a couple more. And for glass bottles, I mentioned earlier, I made homemade limoncello and I needed something to put it in. And so I found these like glass bottles that have the like hook clasp at the top. And I got 3 of them for less than $3, which is fantastic. Then we had another Nordstrom Rack purchase for $21.52. This was another shirt for Jonathan that he thought he might wear to the wedding. He decided he didn't want to wear that one there, but that he did want to keep the shirt because he liked the feel and the look of it. But that is a red light purchase because it wasn't necessary and we didn't budget for it. And then we have $93.27, and that was for my ticket to go and see the Jonas Brothers with my sister. Well worth it. I don't regret a penny of that purchase. That wraps up October. The sun is going down. I am losing the light. I am going to quickly go through November's budget. I have kind of already looked through all of the different things that I do when budgeting because of making the large purchase of the couch and the purchase of the Christmas tree. I was feeling the need to see how much we were going to plan on spending in the month of November. So how I'm feeling going into the month, I'm feeling pretty good. I am very excited about the holiday season coming up. So I'm definitely excited to go to some themed cocktail bars and do some other events out with friends or out with Jonathan. And therefore, I know that there are going to be some categories that we need to increase a little bit to make sure that we allow some space for those things to happen in the next 2 months, while also staying on track with our financial goals for the year. For groceries, I'm budgeting $550. My hope is we'll come slightly under that, but I know that I will be making a special breakfast on Thanksgiving Day for Jonathan and myself, and I'm not sure yet what we're doing that day or that weekend and if I will need to cook anything. So I'm increasing that budget a little bit for that reason. For eating out, I did look at the calendar, but these next 2 months are kind of the months that things are going to pop up out of nowhere. Therefore, I can try and do my best based on the couple of things that I know we need to budget for. I'm going to budget $600 for eating out. For rent and utilities, I know exactly how much that's going to cost. It'll be $1,813.54. So that's what I've budgeted. For subscriptions, I'm budgeting $16.99 because again, I know that that will be exactly what we spend. For gas, I'm budgeting $200. I'm gonna budget $250 because I know that we're going to need to drive to the airport and back, and we could go out of town, I'm not sure. For travel, I'm budgeting $600, which I am hoping we do not spend that much, but I am putting that there to make sure that if we do spend that much, it's not a shock to my system. We've already paid for our plane tickets, our hotel, and our rental car, but we will have to pay for gas. We'll have to pay for airport parking for our car here in Georgia. We'll have to pay for a couple of meals, and then also any shopping we do, I'm gonna stick in the travel budget. For insurance, we've budgeted $379.64 because I know that's exactly how much we'll spend. For business, I've budgeted $28.98 because hopefully that's exactly how much I'll spend. And then for miscellaneous and personal, I'm budgeting $900, which seems like a lot, but let's talk about all of the things that we need to purchase or that we need to budget for. Technically, we don't need to budget for it because it already happened, but Jonathan and I both got our hair done today, and that was around $400. So that accounts for a lot of that category. Then we also need to purchase food for the dog, which hopefully won't be too much money, but I'm going to budget around 40 something ish for that. I need to get a couple of cosmetic things, both makeup and skincare, that need to be replaced or repurchased because either I had to get rid of them because they were expired or that I used them up. We also need to get toilet paper, tissues, dishwasher detergent, and Advil. My intentions for the month are to stay within the budget, if at all possible. Really, I would love to come under budget this month. That would be fantastic because I have a feeling December might be a higher spend month. So I would love to come under budget for November. I also just hope that we have a lot of fun and that we eat really good food, whether that's something that I am making or that we're having out. And I hope that we start to experience all of the holiday cheer that I am so drawn to and love so much this time of year. And I hope that we have a great trip to Minneapolis and a good time at my brother's wedding. That was a little bit of an abbreviated version, one, because the sun's going down, and two, because I had done a lot of prep for this budget already. But I hope that you were able to sit down and look at your budget for last month and for the upcoming month to get an idea of how you want to spend your finances very intentionally, areas that you need to add to or take away from, and if your budgeting goals still align with your finance goals for the year. Thanks so much for watching again. I will see you next week for another video. Until next time.